Okay, today we're working on a 2003 Honda Accord V6 with the 3.0 VTEC, and we're going to replace the upper and lower ball joints, the inner tie rod, and the outer tie rod. I've done most of the work on this side already, but I just want to point out the stuff and then I'll go over how to remove everything. This is the upper ball joint right here. This is the control arm. You can actually buy the whole control arm with the ball joint already installed. Much easier. And then down here, that's the lower ball joint. And then the inner tie rod actually sits right here and it attaches right there. I just got those back from the dealer, or I got them from the dealer. And then the inner tie rod is inside there. So I'm going to need to remove this stuff and then get it out. So we'll go over all that. For starters, you want to jack up the car. I put it up on jack stands. Take the wheel off. And then what I want to do is, first off is take the caliper off. Bolt there. There's one right on the bottom as well. You see it right there. Take those off. And then you're going to want to take this little 10mm bolt. I think it's a 10mm. I'll take this bolt off and then pull the caliper out and then hang it with a tie wrap right around here. I'll show you on the other side because I have it hung up already. Take that off, and then what you want to do next is take these little Phillips screws right here so that we can take the disc out. Get the disc, put it aside, and then what we're going to want to do is take this nut off of here. In order to do that, these come pushed in. So what you want to do is get a little screwdriver and stick it right in between there and hammer it in there and bend it. Like that, and bend it like that, and try to make room so that the nut will actually spin when you put your impact on it. Get your impact, take it off. If you want to do that first, you can. It's up to you. There's no real perfect order to go here. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take these this ABS line off as well. There's a bolt right there, and then there's another bolt on that same frame right there. And then just put the bolts right back in the same spots that you took them off of, so that you don't lose them. And then there's one more bolt right back here. Right there, there's an ABS, which is not tightened, so I still have to tighten all this back up, but there's an ABS. You're going to take that off, you're going to loosen it, and then you're going to pull that. You're going to pull it straight out. It'll pull right out. I'm going to get that out and push that aside, and then you're going to want to take all the cotter pins off of the upper ball joint, the lower ball joint, which one's down here, and then also the tie rod end. There's a ball joint. There's a tie rod end that goes through here and sticks out over here, and there's a cotter pin on there. So you want to take those cotter pins out and kind of set them aside so you know what sizes they are. So when you get your new ones, you know which one goes where, in case you get them mixed up. And then what you're going to want to do is loosen all the bolts. Now you might need a breaker bar. I believe they're all 17s. This one, the one that goes here, and then there's one on the bottom, which is right there. I believe they're all 17s. You might need a large bar with a hard, like a big ratchet or something, and to break them loose. And then what you're going to want to do, what I did was I actually tore all this, because mines were already gone. So what I did is I tore the boot. I took it all out of there, so I'm able to get my tool right in. Just like a fork, it goes right in there. And you got to bang it in there, and then it pops down. Sometimes just banging on it might come off. Not always, because this is the part that you want to drop here, and then the same thing goes here. You bang it on these areas right here where the actual work's going into. See my finger right there. There'll be a ball joint going in. A tie rod and going into there, and then the same thing with the bottom one. But then a lot of times you do have to take that rubber boot off and then stick that fork in. I'll show you what that fork looks like. What you'll need. And then this wedge is in there. Sorry, here's the tie rod right here, but this is the one that's not on the other side. So what I did is I jammed this in there, and I banged on the back of it with the hammer, and then popped. And you want to leave the bolts on so that you see if it pops loose. Of the caliper that I tie wrapped up there, get it out of the way. This is basically what it's going to look like when you disassemble everything. Let's go back to this side. Let me show you. Take off the strut. So you're going to have to take off these 3 bolts. They're 14 millimeter, and then there's 2 12 mil. A couple more bolts that we need to remove. There's one on, if you look at the strut, which is right here, there's a bolt that holds it in place. And this we're going to have to remove. And then there's the fork that it sits on. There's a bolt here and it runs through to the other side. Right there. And you want to take your ratchet and a wrench and take that off. Now once we pop these loose, these should fall down. Same thing goes with the tie rods and the ball joint on the bottom. And then this thing is going to actually want to come out. So what we want to do is we're gonna hit this a little bit with a hammer lightly, and we're going to try to pull on this out. And it should pop off really easy. It did when I did it. Popped off pretty easy, and we were able to get this whole frame out of the way. Okay. Once we get all that frame out of the way, then this strut's going to come out. We're going to be able to lift the strut up. This black part, you're going to lift it up. It's going to come out of this fork, and then you can get the strut out, and you can get the fork and get it out. Okay. As for the tie rod end that goes right here, what I did is I looked at the threading and I counted how many threads there were. Some people say to mark it with a marker, but if there's a lot of grease on there, it's not going to mark anything. Obviously, this one's a new one, so I kind of ran the new nut back on there the same. Pretty close to what it was before. But what we're going to do is when you pull the tie rod out, like I said, you kind of want to know where it's at, where it sits here, before you take off this nut. So that nut will loosen up, and then you'll be able to unscrew the tie rod all the way out. It'll come right out this way towards you. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take off this this bracket here. Use your pliers and take that out towards you. And then back there, there'll be one of those metal brackets. I'll show you on this side because you can barely see it. It's right there. Can't get any closer to it, so. But there's a factory bracket that they use. Kind of like stick a little either pliers or a screwdriver inside there and unpop it. And then you're going to take this boot and you're going to pull it really hard towards you. It's going to come all the way out. See, this is what the tie rod actually looks like. So there's that cotter pin you have to remove, the bolt. Then you stick your fork in, pop that. This will pop up. And then now basically you're sitting like this. So what you want to do is you want to mark this. Okay. Or what I did is I counted the threads from the top to the bottom to kind of get an idea what the adjustment was on it. And then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and loosen this bolt. So you're going to put a wrench here and a wrench here, and you want to loosen this bolt. Once you snap loose this, it might be a little tight. Some of them on some cars are easy, some of them aren't. Turning this thing is just going to turn the whole thing. It's not going to do anything for you. So once you loosen that up, then this thing here, which is the tie rod, will just unscrew counterclockwise and come all the way out. And you get that out, and then the only thing be sitting in there would be this, and then you'll be able to slide this whole boot out. You have to pull really, really hard to get it out, just to get it over these little humps here. You get it all the way out, and then inside there'll be a tie rod. To remove that is going to be this one. This is a tie rod end removal tool, and you can tighten it with it. And it comes with these little I guess they're fasteners to hold it in place. This is the little kit here. It comes with these deals. So you put it on there, you find the size that fits, and then what it's going to do, it's going to lock into place with the little guide that it has there. And then you slide this little thing to lock it in place here. and then you just turn it counterclockwise, and it has a thing for a ratchet right there in case it's super tight. Most of them you'll have to use a ratchet on them. They should be pretty tight if they're factory done. So this, once this tie rod's gone, you'll have a straight little shot in there, and then you'll turn it, which I haven't done, so I will do that. And then you'll be able to get that tie rod out of there. And then putting it back in, the only thing is on these, you can't really use the same factory brackets. They're really hard to put back on, especially if you don't have any room to work in there. A lot of people say use a zip tie or tie wrap. I used one on the other side. This one doesn't spin. The other one spins a little bit because I couldn't get the tie wrap as tight as I wanted. I mean, I could only get it so tight. So I'm using the nice thick rip ties, tie wraps, so that they don't wear down on me. But basically, when you get this piece out, which is what sits right there, you get a good look at that. It'll pop out. Okay. And once we get that out, then we basically now have access to everything here. Two things that you're going to have to do is, one, obviously you're going to have to remove the ball joint from the control arm. This is the control arm. I'm reinstalling. I actually reinstalled the ball joint. I just wanted to show you how that was done. But I just actually took a socket. I took a 1 1/8 socket, and I put it on the ball joint. And I stuck it on top, and I put something underneath it, and I just whacked at it and popped it right out. I mean, it didn't pop right out. It took 5-10 minutes. Okay, so we're back. Like I said, you take the socket, you put it on your ball joint, and you want this to hit the outer part of the ball joint, so that then you take your hammer and then you'll pound on that. Just make sure there's room underneath, so that when the ball joint falls out, it falls down into something and you're not hitting it up against something. Same thing goes for the one on the arm here. Now with the one with the arm, you have to remove this little race here. Okay, and there's a certain way it goes in. It's got a spot here. You see that hole right there? This is how it was sitting in there. So what I did is I just took a small screwdriver, and I kind of started slowly just trying to pull up on it like that all the way around, and it popped right out. You want to make sure not to bend that, because you're going to have to put this back in using a rubber mallet. And the reason I did that is because this thing sits right there where the old ball joint used to be, and it wouldn't let it come out. So then the next thing I did was I did the same thing with this one. I took my socket. Imagine the ball joint sitting in here. And I pounded on this until this popped it out, and the ball joint came flying out of there. So now we're at this point where I installed the upper ball joint with using my little Harbor Freight tool that comes with a little kit. The hardest thing about this is figuring out which one of these sleeves to use, because it's kind of confusing. I just kind of used common sense. So I used this long one here where the tie rod would actually sit up here, up against here, and it would fall into this. And then this thing has like a little hole right here where this thing goes in. It actually sits on something, so it'll hit up against metal. And then this thing actually pushes down on the tie rod. And then I hooked up my impact right here using a socket. I think it was like a 7/8 inch is what it was. And then I just kind of held it there, and I'll slowly, I kind of hit it a couple times and see if it was moving. This one's already done. But what I did with this, and the reason I say if you get the control arm with the tie rod, it's probably better off. And the reason is I had to actually take the boot off. Now you say, well, it's not a big deal. Well, this boot, yeah, with this one, it's not a big deal to take it off because it's an aftermarket one. Taking off the bottom one is a pain because it has like a clip, and then the clip is hard to put back on. But anyways, you just got to fight with it a little bit. But the top one here, when I did the other side, I don't know if it kind of warped the bushing cover, but when I put it back on, it's supposed to have this little metal thing to kind of hold it in place. Well, what happened is, I'll show off. This boot kept falling off, so what I did is I took some epoxy and I actually glued the boot to the tie rod onto that little retainer thing, because I didn't want the boot falling off, because it kept falling off. Once it hit an angle a certain way, I was trying to install it, the boot would just fall right off. So now that I did that, it's not falling off. I'm not planning to remove this anytime soon either. I think next time if I do one of these, I'm just going to buy the whole control arm. I know the boots, the ball joints are pretty cheap. I think this thing new at the dealer was about $70 with the ball joint, with new bushings. These are good, but it came with new bushings as well, and it would have just been a drop in. It would have been a piece of cake. All I would have to worry about is the outer tie rod and the lower ball joint, which would have made my job a lot easier. But anyway, so this one's done here. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to release this. I got to release that. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to back off this bolt so that I can get my ball joint off, and I'll install the little boot on there, and then I'll put the little clip on there, and then I'll go from there. And then the next step is going to be to put the fun part, do the last. I'll do the lower ball joint. So I got that lower ball joint in, and I'm going to attack the outer litter tie rod. Now we want to install the boot on here, and just kind of turn it, make sure it's sitting in there. What you want to do is get this retaining clip, and there is some special pliers you can use to open up. I don't have any. I'm just going to use some needle nose pliers and try to get them in there and open it up. There it is. So the clip's going to sit in there. Hopefully you can see this. It's right up on top. And then you'll have a little bit, you'll be able to see a little bit of the brass there, and then there's like the rubber part is where you want to put the this little metal retainer, I think that's what they call them. Now I know this ball joint had like a little bit of it looked kind of like had a cutout on the top and the bottom when I took this out, so it'll go back and forth this way as it sits in here towards you. So make sure that's lined up like that. I don't know if it matters. I didn't really notice it on the old one, but I want to make sure it moves this way, because that's the way it's going to be moving. The tire generally moves this way. It's not going to move like this. So it has a little bit of an opening on the sides, but not a lot. So then this thing will go up there. And actually, well, we'll move that over because you can't see from right there. So the next step is going to be there's the ball joint. So this is the lower ball joint. Should you take the nut off? Now, when it comes with the new clip and the new retainer, this is the piece I was talking about that you have to remove. It's a little blue, but this one's metal. And it's easy to, well, it's not super easy, but it's easy to kind of remove. It's a pain to put back on, because once this ball joint's sitting in there, you want to make sure it doesn't fall in where the retainer clip's supposed to go, and that's what happened on the other side. it fell in there, and then I had a hard time. Methodically, I had to take it out. Finally, I got it out, and I was able to get it in there, and I went from there. But you want to do that, and you also want to grease up this thing. Just use any type of a grease. All this grease is for is to help the ball joint slide as you're trying to install it. Just kind of rub it all around there so that, and then just wipe it off at the end, whatever's left over. So this thing is going to actually go in here, okay? Now, it looks like I'm not being able to get away with, just afraid to ruin, because I know I did the other side and I didn't take the rubber bushing off the top one, and it tore the bushing a little bit. That's what scares me, and I had to kind of fix it. I'm thinking, this slide here a little, I really don't want to take the boot off because of that clip, and I know I had a hard time last time. Well, I'm going to take a chance here. On this, you're supposed to use one of these deals, but you're not going to fit it in here. So the only thing I was able to rig up is I was able to use this same piece here, right where the tie rod is, right there. That's the only way I was able to do it, I think, last time. What you want to do is you want to just make sure that this tie rod's going in straight. Try to center it the best you can. Impact again. We'll go forward. And then just slowly. Beautiful. Now back it off. Put it in reverse. Awesome. I did not have to take this off. I didn't do that on the other side. At least you're not going to make that mistake. Here's the clip. And then the same thing's going to apply here. We're going to take our little pliers. And then we're going to try to separate those. Just kind of glide it down there as much as you can. And you're going to take these pliers. Now there's a special tool that you actually squeeze and it opens it up. And I had some, but I can't find them, so now I got to rig it. There it is. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this one in here. So remember, line that up right there where the opening is. And then you need a rubber mallet for the... Look down here that the gap is almost all the same. That's how you know it went in. Sometimes it might look like it's in there and it's not. I was putting the strut back on, and like I was saying, you have to push this up and then tighten this bolt. And once you get that down, then you want to get our 17 wrench. Hold it from one side and tighten the other. there. Now we're going to tighten up. Once we've got this in there now, those are nice and tight. We're going to tighten up the ones on the top. Nice and tight. Use like a breaker bar to tighten them a little bit more. Now these are 12 mil bolts. I wouldn't go as crazy as I did on the other ones because probably not as strong, but I would say maybe 3/4 of the way what I tightened these other bolts. Well, 3 times we want to get that back in there. So let's see, what do we put that in first? Yeah, okay. So we're gonna pull down on this a little bit, put a bolt through it. I might have to jack this up a little bit because this is really heavy now. Jack it up so that I can get the bolt up in here. Once I get the bolt up in there, next I'll put the bolt. You can see from here, the bolt for the lower ball joint back on. The light's kind of killing it right there. Torque those down really good, and then put the cotter pins in those, that one and that one. And then once I got that in there, then what I'll do is I'll tighten down this bolt here with the impact, and it'll bring that axle all the way out. Tighten that bolt down. Okay, and then we'll put our disc back on there. Put those 2 little screws back on there, and then we'll go ahead and cut this tie wrap, and then bring that caliper down and put it right back over the rotor and bolt that down. And then all we really got left is these little cables, the brake cable to put it back on this arm here, the ABS sensor, put that back up there, put it back on the arm here, and then put it up right here behind the brake, bolt it back down there, slide it in, bolt it in. And once we got all that in, then I'll go ahead and I'll worry about taking off this tie rod over here, because then that way, now this will be nice and secure, and I'll be able to loosen that up there. So, try to set the camera down. Maybe one more vid. Hopefully this will be it. And then we'll go from there. Now, usually when you buy a ball joint, they usually come with new nuts and a new cotter pin. It's always advisable to replace them. I did use a breaker bar to take these off. So I'm going to use a breaker bar to tighten them back up too. want to do is you want to make sure you're lined up. Put your cotter pin in there. There's a hole in there that runs through there. Put your cotter pin. This might happen to you, because it does happen. You push the cotter pin in, next thing you know, the frame is in the way, so you want to start bending the cotter pin. One way and then the other part of it the other way. Ease it back. It's just a security measure for the nut. That doesn't come off. Do the same thing on the bottom. This one on the bottom. Now the new nuts on this weren't 17. Actually, the bottom one was a 19. It wasn't the same. The entrance is the same, but the nut was actually bigger. The bottom isn't a problem, you just gotta use a firm wrench. And then the same thing goes here. I'm gonna double check my other side. And you want to look for the cotter pin. Like that. This one was much easier to slid right in, because there's nothing in the way. And you do the same thing, just bend it back. Okay, so now we're good there. The next thing we need is another compressor. I believe it's a 36 millimeter socket. Let that compressor build up a little bit. I think about 140, 160 pounds of pressure, something like that. That's doing that. I'm going to put the tie rod back in. I'm loosen that up. The band, you want to make sure to pound that back, flatten it out, so it doesn't move on you. Just a little bit of a bend. You'll see the flat spot on there. See the little holes? So you want to line those up. There they are. Spray a little WD-40 on there and on your nuts. These nuts. Screws. I think when WD-40 gets everywhere, everything becomes slippery. Try to torque stuff down, do a little bit harder. And these tighten them as hard as you can, just hand tighten them. Make sure you have a good Phillips screwdriver to do this. You don't want to strip these bolts. then you're going to have problems. And the next step, I'm going to cut the tie rod down. Make sure your hands aren't full of anything. Make sure the pads didn't shift on you. You have enough room to put them back. Put this back in. Sometimes they move a little bit and you have a hard time trying to get it back on there. Got 2 bolts that secure it. Lastly, on the other video, I ended up with tightening up the 2 caliber bolts here. Then on the brake line, we're going to reinstall this bolt here. And then the ABS sensor, we're going to remount it back up to the upper control arm. There's 1 bolt there. And then there's another bolt right here. So put that back on there. And then we're going to reinstall the ABS sensor, which is basically sliding it back into its slot here. And then it has a 10mm bolt. Put that back on there. And then now we're going to take off the outer tie rod and the inner tie rod. It's the outer tie rod. Now let's just assume, put the screw on here. I already did this and I had to make about 3 videos and I'm just kind of tired. I just want to finish. So this bolt was on here, and what I did was I took my 19mm wrench, okay, and I turned it to the right this way, righty tighty, but it's not lefty loosey on this one, okay, because we're the opposite. If you were facing the bolt, then it would be correct, but since we're out here, it's going to be right to loosen it. Well, this bolt was really tight, so what I did was I put my wrench on there, took my pipe wrench and I broke it loose, loosened it. But before I did that, I marked it. Well, actually, I counted the threads on here. The other side it was 6 threads. This one said 8. My alignment's been off, so I'm going to probably back it down to about 7 when I'm all done. But right now we want to loosen this up. And then I had a hard time here because I had to put the camera down. Once I got this out, the the tie rod out, we want to take this off of the inner tie rod. So what I had to do was I had to take a 14mm wrench and put it right here on the inner tie rod, which is right there, okay. And then I had to take I took a crescent wrench because I didn't have a big enough size to break this, but I had to turn this counterclockwise like this, and it took some pressure on this side. The other side was really easy, it just came right off. I don't even know if I even used a wrench on it. I think I just turned it by hand, but this side was super tight, so you have to hold that with one hand and then break this to the left with the other, and then basically this tie rod is just going to unscrew. Now what I did do was I took the little bracket off of here, basically used some pliers or some needle nose, squeeze it, pull it out. You can do it now, or you could have did it before. It doesn't really matter. Let's just assume you didn't do it yet. You could do it after you pull this tie rod out. So this tie rod's out. So look at the new one. There's a new one from the dealer. Exactly the same. Okay, so then now what we're going to do is we want to take the nut off. Like I said, either mark it before or count the threads before you pull this nut all the way off, or else your alignment's going to be way off. You just want to get it close, and there's some videos online how to do a manual alignment or take it into a place and have them do it. Okay, so then what we want to do is, there's an actual bracket in the back that comes manufactured, and what I did is I took a screwdriver and I jammed it in there, and then I popped it. Got it off. Or you can use some needle nose pliers, whatever you can get in there to pop it off. You're not going to be able to reuse this bracket. These things are horrible. Some guy said they're a piece of shit. He's right. I tried to put it back together. I couldn't. I just used a tie wrap. It doesn't work as good because the tie wrap actually lets it spin like this, and with the original it does not spin at all. The only drawback is this boot coming off, and we really don't want it coming off, but I mean, the tie rod's way over here. That's the only thing that has grease. Way in there, there's really nothing in there. So now what we want to do is just want to pull this towards us. Just pop that out. So over here we don't have a problem, but as long as we keep dust out of there, we're good. That's pretty much what the tie wrap's going to do once we put it back. And now this ball joint, we're going to take it off, but we need a special tool to do it. Now I have this bad boy right here, bought also at Harbor Freight. So what we need to do is we need to take one of these, find out what size it is. From the top side. Oops. Just so it doesn't fall. Everything with one hand. It's difficult. My wife said it was crazy. She said, just finished my damn car. Quit making videos. But nobody made a video of this stuff, and I know how frustrating it is when you're trying to save a little bit of money, getting by. Just can't do it, so I figured I'd do it. So if I get divorced, I'm going to kill you guys. Anyways, what you want to do is, this thing is going to slide in. It has a little groove. We want to get it right where that thing is. Now I'm supposed to use two hands, but I think I might get lucky here. Get it in there. And then you just want to kind of wiggle it around till you get it. Locking sleeve. I'm going to put you guys down just for hopefully. There it is. Basically, I just used my ratchet and I just spun it left and broke it loose. There goes my little spacer thing. Now this thing has a little retaining clip on the back of it. Make sure you guys check to see how it goes back on. Ooh, there goes a little rubber. That little rubber bushing has to stay back on there. Okay. Make sure you don't lose that. That's key. Now this clip here, it's kind of raised on the top side. And then it's bent, like somebody bent it to keep it kind of like this thing here. They bent it after they installed it. So there's the old one. There's the new one. And it comes with the new deal there. So this thing would go on like that with those little things going forward, and then we'll bang on this once we get it installed. Just kind of wipe it down to get some of that, there's any dust and stuff in there. Now some guys talked about Loctite and stuff. When I pulled these out, they didn't have no Loctite on them, so I'm not going to put Loctite on this. Some guys said if you put Loctite on it, you never get it off. Hopefully I'm never planning on doing this again, but so I'm going to hand tighten it there. Now, the one I had on there before, that was this one. The new one seems like it uses a smaller adapter of these deals that I had. I used this one to take the other one off, but that one fits perfect to get it back on. And the reason I know it's because I checked it before I did it. So, just to make the video quicker, this on there. I'm gonna put you down for a sec again. Sorry about the finish, man. I don't know if you can even see there or not, but all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just try to get the spacer back on there, just to lock it in place, and then I'm just gonna torque it down with my ratchet again. Yeah, I don't think you guys can even see me there. If I flip the camera, I wonder what's going to happen. Put you right on top of it. I can't even do that. Hold on. Maybe. I wonder if you can even see that there. No. I'm trying everything, guys. Trying to get you to get a visual here without me losing my mind, because I want to go finish already. I can't do it with one hand. Okay. I'm about to start cursing in about 2 seconds, guys. That was good the whole time. Potty mouth's coming out. Alright, baby, come on. Put you down for a second again. Oh, hate to put it down. There it is. Okay, I got it finally on there. I had to move this pipe over to the right a little bit in order for it to glide in. I kept trying to put it in straight and it wouldn't do it. So now what I'm going to do is tighten it down. Now this is supposed to be torqued down, I think at 40 pounds or something, or 60 pounds. So I'm just doing it by hand. 60 pounds to me is about, I can't go any harder. So that's back on there. And then we're going to reverse. We're going to put the boot on. Okay, so what I did was I tightened, God, I hate to go backwards here, but YouTube just screws me with videos. I used my deal there. I had the boot off. I slid this in. I put the tie rod back in. I tightened it down. This is what the tie rod looked like. Basically, it goes over here. You hook on this piece onto here, and then this thing slides over it, locks into place with this little thing here. That guide goes right into here, and then you tighten it down. I tightened it down as hard as I could go, which is about 60 pounds. Once I got that in there, I slid the boot back on. I'm going to use a zip tie or tie wrap on the back because I can't reuse the clip that came with the dealer. This garbage. I'll tie it down as best I can. And then I just put the little clip on here that we had taken off earlier with some needle nose pliers. Basically put it back on there. Okay. And then I just put the bolt that came with that inner tie rod. And I want to go back up to about, I think before it said it was about 8 grooves, but the alignment's been off on this car. The other side was 6, so I'm going to go to about 7 grooves, and I'm counting from the top. I'm just going to try to get as close as I can. We're about at 8 now. I'm going to go to about 7. Just because the other side was 6 and the alignment had been off on this car for a while. Now, when I took it to my mechanic, he had said that the inner tie rods were bad. The outer ones were bad. These ones out here, they were shot. He said, oh, I can't align it because the inner tie rods are bad. But I shook them and nothing happened. But I bought them anyways. I had already done a bunch of suspension work on this car, so I figured, what the hell, I'll just go ahead and just replace them either way. Okay, so the next step, oops, excuse me, sorry. Take the outer tie rod. Oh God, if I could do this with one hand, it should be pretty easy, but, so now we're just going to spin it till it hits the bolt. I was just taking the tie rod and bolt off, I'm sorry. It was on there and it wasn't supposed to be. So then this just basically, I'm just spinning it by hand. And once it hits where it needs to be, I'm going to tighten it I'm going to go up a little bit more just so I can get the last spin on this, which I think is going to give me 6 grooves, watch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, right at 6. I think that's where we're supposed to be because the tie rod just sits in there just perfect. And then what you're going to want to do is just, this bolt is bigger, so we're just going to want to go to the left, tighten as hard as we can so that it locks that tie rod in place. Okay, and then we're going to go over here and then just put the bolt on from underneath. Hopefully we can get it on. And I believe that one is a 17, I think. Yeah, it is. Move these lights back a little bit because they are hot. And then once we got this in, all we do is put the last cotter pin in there. And we're done. Put the wheel back on. Tighten that down. I already finished the other side. And then good to go. Now you could go online. There's a couple guys that show how to align the car with a couple measuring tapes. If you just want to kind of, get it just right on. Or just take it to an alignment shop. I'm going to take mine to an alignment shop. I might mess with it a little bit before I go, but I want to get this thing right because I just bought new tires. But hope you guys enjoyed the vid. I'm not going to show you to put the tire back on because I'm pretty sure you guys know how to do that. Sorry for the shaky camera and all that stuff. But like my buddy in the snow says, hey, you know what? It's time for a cold one. Cheers and good luck. If you got any questions, hit me up. I'll be more than happy to help you guys out. Explain something that I probably missed, or because the videos, I had to do so many videos, man, and then YouTube doesn't let me upload certain videos. I don't know if it's because of my phone or what have you, but this thing's done. This thing will be on the road hopefully soon. Have a good day. Bye.